Hi, I'm Chris. I like to paint things, and this video is an homage to my old hobby desk. I recently moved and won't be able to set up another one for a couple of weeks. It was meant to be a video about a game called Blitzball, but being October, it's mostly about orcs.
Shuttle up, lads!
It's about painting orcs and making molds out of orcs and 3D printing some orcs and even building some custom orc terrain. So let's celebrate the month of Orctober together as I build a custom Blood Bowl team and trick my friends into playing some games. Blitzball is a super simplified version of Blood Bowl with small teams and really easy to follow rules. It's perfect for getting your board game friends to play some Warhammer when they don't really want to play lots of rules either. I played hundreds of hours of the PC game, but kind of prefer my tabletop rule sets to be really light. Plus the box comes with rules for every existing team. It's basically a complete game. You can buy the one box and be done, and then get more teams as you go. Each team is a single sprue of a larger Blood Bowl team, so it's kind of easy to find them on eBay. You can literally buy like a single sprue. You can literally find like single sprues of humans or rats or undead. It's really nice, makes it really cost effective, and like I said, it's kind of a finished game. So this brings me to the orcs. I was able to find 3 black orcs on eBay, plus a star player. I've actually bought this model twice. Last time I kit bashed him into a custom orc war boss.
Is this where the fighting is?
However, we are missing 3 gobos, so we're gonna have to source those elsewhere. Now, I've covered painting orc skin before. This is kind of like my basic recipe. I like to use moot green for skin because it's really, really vibrant.
Orcs, 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 orcs.
And for these football playing orcs, we're just gonna do like a black jersey. Something simple, something that's gonna let the green skin stand out, because they are green skins. I also wanted to show off this really nice mug I got that I promise I won't put paint water in. Look at that.
Up yours!
So I base coated the entire, like all the sets of armor with just like a matte black. I didn't even bother recording that because no one wants to see me base coat black paint. And then I'm gonna kind of make like a metallic black armor. So I did a dry brush of like a darker metallic silver and then a slightly lighter dry brush of a bright like plate mail metal from the army painter. And we're just gonna make this very, very silver. Almost to like, you know, just like a dark, dingy silver. And then I'm gonna go over the whole thing with like a grim black speed paint. This is kind of an experiment. Blood Bowl minis, because they're not particularly expensive, and I'm not putting them in like some grandiose 40K army, are really good to experiment with different color combinations that you don't normally use. Different things like this. Black speed paint is nice. It kind of just behaves like black ink, and it covers that silver really nicely. Then we have to do our orc skin. My orc skin tends to be Castellan green highlighted up to moot green, and then washed with some Coelia green shade to get like really nice shading. I think it pairs well with the moot green. And then I take moot green and layer it up into cyber yellow for the highlights. I love painting orc skin. Hate painting people skin. I like painting orc skin and Tau skin. Any skin that's not people colored. I don't know, maybe because it's just like green is an easier color to work with than I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe green's an easier color to work with. Maybe like human skin is just like a difficult mix because it's like multiple colors mixed together. I'm not sure. I really enjoy painting green, so I prefer to do that. I really love putting on the wash. The wash is, you know, anyone who's painted enough minis knows that the wash is like the magic step when things start to look good. You get a wash down, like a unifying wash and everything. You're like, oh, this doesn't look like a bunch of block colors of green.
Is this where the fighting is?
Now, I'm not going to belabor this process. I'm not going to go over every little thing I did to paint this orc. There's a million videos on the internet of painting orcs. I just painted a bunch of leather in like a nice warm brown and did a bunch of details of like wraps and pants and straps and that sort of thing. Nothing no one has ever seen before. Just painting, base coat, highlight. I like to do orc skin first and get like the full wash on and everything before I base coat everything else. I'm not sure why. I think it just makes me like feel like the orc is more complete, and then I can, you know, punch it up later. Or by the time I finish painting all of these details, I can then go back to highlighting the skin immediately. So like you can really knock out some orcs in a couple quick sessions. And then I set about customizing all 3 of these black orcs, giving them each different shoulder pads. You got to do some checker marks if you're doing orcs. You got to do some racing stripes. You got to do just a couple different things to make them all different. This is all freehand, and the best part about orcs is if it looks bad, it just looks like they painted it themselves. they're not going to take the time to paint it nicely, and you don't have to either. It looks fine. You can go back in and kind of fix that with some black paint. Then I wonder about highlighting the metallic armor with a brighter metallic. It's actually the first metallic we used to dry brush everything. Also had to grab a couple other metal details like knuckle dusters and little buckles and straps on the back of the orcs. And then line the socks in red just so that you know they're socks. And honestly, the reason I made them socks was because I painted all the skin, then noticed I didn't paint their little legs. So I decided to paint them as socks. I like it. I don't know. Is it weird? Probably. I don't think orcs wear socks like that. And then same thing I said before, we're going to do a unifying wash. All of my Blitz Bowl and Blood Bowl models, I've just been doing some marine juice.
Orcs
I believe
is
is
made
the technical
for
term.
fighting.
It's just a nice unifying wash, mixing 2 washes and a medium. And then sometimes on orcs, depending on I'm feeling, I'll even go over the skin with this. This wash is it's not light. It's just like grim dark in a bottle. It's very, very, very nice at bringing everything together. And at this point, the Coelia green shade was like dry, so we can add a bunch more definition, but keep the kind of tones the same and keep the blue in the shadows. I'm good at painting orcs. What can I say? I do it a lot. Molly would really appreciate it if you could consider subscribing. I would too, but mostly the cat. Yeah. Okay. She doesn't want to be bothered. Just subscribe or like the video. Sorry, Molly. Next, we have to sort out the goblins for our team. Every orc team has 3 gobos on it, and surprisingly, I only have these 2 in my collection. I do have a couple of squigs, and definitely considered using squigs to fill out that instead of the goblins, but I had other ideas. I decided we could make a cast out of a model. Now, I am not going to say that I did this correctly. I don't even know if casting is, I won't say moral, but there's a little disclaimer. Chris has absolutely no idea what he's doing. He's never used product before. Probably never will ever. Chris experience that not following any steps that are followed. Chris does not know how to necessarily available. Even if you actually do this, instead, he's just finding me something that tells me something. Also, for me person, actually applying this. Again, not follow the steps of the video. You're trying to make multiple. Chris has absolutely no idea what he's doing. Honestly, only seeing instructions. Proceed at own risk. So this is one of those really simple silicone molds where you do 50-50 of 2 like things, and then you mix them together and they turn into a mold. If you haven't noticed, I'm being very imprecise and careless. I'm not even wearing gloves right now. I would probably recommend wearing gloves because I have no idea what is in this delicious blue liquid. It's like forbidden Kool-Aid or Jello. But I made a little popsicle stick rig, and we're just gonna suspend one of our goblins in that and leave it to dry. Hopefully. Well, if you haven't, it didn't work. None of this worked. It didn't like cure perfectly. I don't know. I'm sure I didn't mix them correctly. They probably didn't get enough air. These are kind of meant for making small molds that you flash with like a UV thing. Like probably work really well for bases. But I don't know about like if I'm trying to get, all of the dimensions of a thing. It'd be really good to, yeah, cast some flat bases or some heads, so I don't know, man. You guys can tell what I did wrong. Because then I cut the mold into a bunch of pieces to get the goblin out, who's still real tacky and covered in uncured silicone. And then I grabbed some UV resin and dumped it into a crevice that doesn't get any light. So ask me how that was supposed to cure. Yeah. Read the disclaimer, folks. I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. I just like literally poured it in there, and then I had to clean the tip of the resin thing off. It was a process, man. And as I was doing this, I was like, I don't think this is correct. I thought maybe I could make 2 half casts, like cast the front and back of the goblin, but something's wrong. So with my molds being an obvious failure, and I honestly not feeling like trying that again, I decided to source some others. I found these goblin, warrior dudes from Reaper that are fun, but I don't know, GW goblin heads are just so iconic that these just weren't gonna work. I really like them. I'm gonna save them for something in the future, probably a Christmassy video. They're very, very cool, and you get a bunch of them for like $5. Big fan of Reaper. It's just good for practicing on, good for little projects. They're real silly. Look at this guy. Oh.
Up yours!
Hey, up yours too, buddy. So instead, I had my brother, who's recently taken up 3D printing, 3D print me some free goblins I found online. This was way cooler, and I really like these guys. Look at them. Look at this foam finger. Look at these 3D prints. I don't do a lot of 3D prints. I usually, purchase 3D prints off of Etsy. I haven't ever asked anyone to do one for me, and my brother did a very good job. These guys are really fun, and I'll throw a link in the description. I had to clean up a little bit of the sprue gates, and the bottoms of the bases didn't print like perfectly. It's not the end of the world. They're gonna stand just fine. Look at them. They're very silly. And I wasn't gonna go into details if I painted them because figure it out yourself. I don't know. Look at these guys. I'm just kidding. You can find how to paint goblins on the internet. Just look up how to paint goblins on the internet. I did them in like one afternoon plus a wash plus like another hour of highlights. I think they came out super great. That guy's holding a blue moon. The last thing I wanted to do to really make this team my own was to scratch build an orky dugout. Every team needs a dugout to hang out in, throw goblins at each other, chew on, seeds or whatever it is you do in dugouts. That's baseball. I don't know. I decided to design one first in Photoshop just to get a good rough idea of what I wanted to build. And I settled on this. Pretty straightforward. A couple of stone columns, couple of wooden spikes. Easy peasy. I also designed a human dugout, which is just like a cleaner version of the orc one. And this Skaven dugout, which I think is pretty fun. I think I'm going to build at least one of these. So while I'm not in a set hobby space, my pickings for terrain were a little slim. I was able to dig up a bunch of these old Mega Bloks Dragons pieces that we're going to use as the corners. They're almost cheating because they already have like all the stonework. You just got to clip them off. They're made of surprisingly tough plastic. I mean, I know Lego is like some of the toughest plastic out there. So these Mega Bloks are close. They're not as good. I mean, geez, I thought Mega Bloks were cooler, but that's just me. I also grabbed an actual Lego piece to use as a base and kind of, one, so everything's perfectly square, and two, so I have like a constrained size to leave these things in. And I found 2 of them so I can make 2 dugouts. Now, I hot glued everything. I would not recommend hot gluing anything, or hot gluing and then using real glue later, because, well, you'll see later. But so I hot glued everything down to kind of keep it in place. And I just started building out from there. I wanted like 3 stone columns, and then we're gonna take some popsicle sticks and build a bunch of like wooden spikes. The best part about orky terrain is that you don't need to plan at all. I mean, you literally just start breaking things like haphazardly. I could have left that little spike too, honestly. Just start breaking stuff, man. It's easy. You can also start slicing stuff. I grabbed my hobby knife and just cut these bad boys in half. You just score them a couple times. Just straight passes, and then they'll snap super easy. There's no measuring when building orc terrain, by the way. I don't know if that was obvious or not, but so then I took my pliers and I clipped these into like little spiky posts because orcs like wooden spikes. Then I took a file, roughed everything up, and started slapping on spikes. Pretty nice, easy. I mean, the balance is fun, they're there, an orc can fit like perfectly in that little gap. And then I started like cladding the edges, I guess, to cover up the Lego pieces. Oh, sorry, no, this is me doing the floor. I'm winging it today, folks. I'm just tired, and I want to get this done by October. So I know the narration's I'm not as funny as I normally am, if it wasn't obvious. Super glue attaches very nicely to sanded Lego pieces, by the way. And wood. God, that stuff just drinks up super glue. Then I found these bricks from a little kit that my wife bought me for Christmas. They're just little stone bricks. I mean, they're probably made of some sort of plaster or something, but they're great because they're a little heavy, so I wouldn't build a whole house with them, because I did build one whole house with them, and it is, for its size, it's pretty heavy. So I wouldn't build a whole structure out of this for wargaming, I don't think, but I wanted to add them on the sides, make them look all jagged, like the orcs just threw a bunch of rocks they found together. And then we needed those larger back posts, so I'm gonna make a bunch of spikes on the back, not really measuring, doing the exact same thing I did before. The only difference is each spike is going to be like, oh, you'll see, they're halved slightly differently. I don't need to show you how to cut wood. I hope I don't. And then I put them in like nice alternating patterns and just kind of made the wood on the back different from the wood on front, just for some visual interest. The nice thing about wood too is it's pre-detailed. You don't need to worry about making any sort of detail. It's already, you know, it's got a grain and everything. And then for good measure though, you just slap on a few extra pieces of wood here and there, make it look all rickety, like it was like hastily thrown together and then it started falling. And I also made this little door. This is the best part of this build. This little door, and it only took me like 5 minutes. Then I chose the weirdest thing for rivets ever, some little foam, like beads, foam balls, and sliced them in half and decided to use them as rivets. I realized like 20 minutes later after I did this whole process that I had a bunch of nail art beads in my bag, and I should have used those because those are way better and better size for rivets, but I used beads and foam. So then we just take a basing mixture. I've used this mixture in like every video I think I've ever done on this channel. It's just baking soda, glue, paint, and some sand. And then we just start frosting this bad boy, kind of covering up some of the Lego pieces, putting it in the corners, making it look nice and grimy and dirty and, you know, mud tracked in by football players, that sort of thing. It looks terrible. It looks really bad when you do this, but that's why we prime. So this is the dugout. The streaks of brown do make it look not amazing, but once it's primed, like I said, I think it'll look totally fine. That was actually very fun to make. And then this is the human one. It's much more clean, streamlined. I probably spent half the time on this as I did on the orc one. And there it is, the magical priming stage. Makes everything look like one thing. I did a zenithal prime with black and gray, pretty obvious. And then I set about painting it with craft paint because why waste fancy model paints on a thing I threw together out of popsicle sticks in 20 minutes. Then I threw a wash on everything, and that weakened the hot glue. I don't know. It made the entire thing just start falling apart at the seams. I was very upset. I stole craft glue from my wife and fixed everything. This was the better part of a morning, which sucked, but I don't know. It was a beautiful day out. I enjoyed it. It did warp the wood too a lot, which I guess it's water. I should have seen that coming. I'm a dingus. Looks orky, so fair enough. And with our team painted, last thing left was to base them. Basing for Blood Bowl is really fun because it's different than how I normally base things. I start off by just doing a base of green, just so that there's like a grassy bottom. We're gonna do grassy football pitch bases, obviously. So we're not going to do, you know, a blasted wasteland. Isn't that right, Moxie? Moxie helped me steal a bunch of flocking from my wife. You can buy flocking, you can make your own flocking. This is what I had on hand. Just got a lot of nice stuff in there. I might be back. Also need that. So I just grabbed 2 different greens. On my other models, there's like a third, much grassier flocking in this basing mix that I think goes a little farther than what I did. But you really just mix those with glue. It's that easy. I don't really care if it looks like grass. I just need to look green and nice. Then you mix that up, get a good ratio of like paste. This glue is a little tackier than your average glue, so it did make like it did make like spreading this a little more annoying than my other Blood Bowl models. If y'all really care, I could make like a much better video on flocking. But all you do is just take a couple different greens and a couple of bushes and stuff and just slap them down. A few woodland tufts breaks up the bases, gives you more greenery, more texture, a little differentiation because nature isn't, ever gonna look one-sided. But you're on a pitch, so I guess it's not real grass. I don't know. Heavily manicured. I even took some of this and slapped it on the bases to add more color and to tie everything together. This was actually a really nice touch. This really elevated them to a much more like finished state is probably what I would call it. And then I did the ceremonial rimming of the bases and these babies were done. And if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Do the liking and the commenting and the subscribing and all of the things that I'm going to ask you to do every single week. It's really important that I ask you to do those things and that you do them. This video, I started those orcs in January, so it's been a process. I know a couple of you have been asking about this Blood Bowl video. I'm sorry. And I have a pounding headache, otherwise I wouldn't record this. But the people demand orcs. It's October, and I had to finish before October. So, like I said, like and subscribe and comment and do the hyping, I think is the thing we're supposed to be doing now. I don't care. Next video, I haven't decided yet. I'm moving in like 3 days. So, yeah. Wish me luck, folks. I'll see you on the other side. I'll have a new hobby desk. I think I'm going to paint some quar, actually. We're going to do some quar and some battle tech. Does that sound good? I don't know. I never know. I've been Chris. I like to paint things. These are orcs. They're very cool. Happy Orctober. Take it easy.